And for more on this, I want to bring in MSNBC contributor Sam Stein, managing editor of The Bulwark. So we saw former President Obama return to the campaign trail this weekend. Let's play a little bit more of his message.
So if you believe in that better story of America, do not sit this one out. Vote for leaders like Abigail who believe it too.
We need leaders like Mikey, public servants who are in it for the right reason, who are focused on the future, and who will always stay connected to the people that they were elected to serve.
Sam, is the former president an effective messenger for Democrats in this moment? What's his role in the party right now?
Well, it's been interesting. He's been speaking out more and more aggressively during the Trump years than I think a lot of people suspected. And his people basically say he understands the urgency of the moment. He, like many other people, feels that the guardrails are simply not there anymore. The country's drifting in a dangerous direction. At the same time, they are also cognizant of the need for new Democratic figures and voices to emerge, and that if he is out there too regularly, too publicly, he could end up overshadowing them just by virtue of being an ex-president and one of the most famous politicians on the planet. With respect to these elections, I mean, this is sort of a tried and true formula now. Barack Obama, at the close of the campaign, comes out very specifically to do turnout operations. And by that, I mean he goes to largely Democratic locales in certain states and tries to reach people who may be on the fence about voting but are reliably Democratic. And he tries to get them to the polls. And that is something that he's good at. He can still deliver a speech, obviously, but he's good at motivating and synthesizing the moment in a way that a lot of Democratic politicians simply aren't.
President Trump, he's posted online about these races. He did endorse Jack Ciattarelli in New Jersey for the governor's race there, but he hasn't hit the campaign trail for these GOP candidates. Does that surprise you?
Not really. It would have been very difficult for both of those candidates to have Donald Trump on the campaign trail for a couple different reasons. One, in Virginia specifically, it's just been decimated by government cuts. The shutdown has not helped matters, but there's a bunch of federal workers in the state who demonstrably have been worse off over the past 9-10 months. And in New Jersey, look, it has trended rightward in recent years and election cycles, but it's very clear that the efforts by the Democrats right now is to tar the Republicans with just being in the pocket of Donald Trump, and canceling things like the Gateway Tunnel, for instance, is just not popular in the state. And so having him there would raise more questions than it does. Presidents, incumbents are never really that welcome on the trail during these off-year elections. The same was true of Joe Biden in Virginia. Barack Obama in Virginia in 2017 was problematic. So it doesn't surprise me. Where Trump's going to be advantageous is doing these teletown halls. And also, he's got a lot of cash. Remember, he's been raising all this money, even though he says, well, he doesn't say it, even though he can't run again for a third term. He has all this money, and he's got to spend it, and he's going to be spending it on these races.
A new NBC News poll shows some frustration among voters with President Trump, with around 2/3 now saying he has fallen short on the economy.
That kind of bittersweet moment for all Democrats, because Democrats are on a constant hunt for the next Barack Obama, it feels like at the moment, even for the 28 race. Virginia, Abigail Spanberger looks like she's in a better position than she was a couple of weeks ago. She's run a campaign that is relentlessly pivoting back to the economy. She's tried to get out into the rural areas of the state. And Virginia is this just weird mixture of Northern Virginia, which is basically solid blue Democrats, a lot of immigrants who live just across the Potomac from Washington, D.C. But then you've got large sections of the state that are much more conservative and a lot of farming areas. And she's made an effort to get out to those farming areas to talk to them about how the tariffs are hurting them, because we know American farmers are being hit by, even the Treasury Secretary is being hit, apparently, in his soybean farming. So she's made that effort, and I think it's paid up. And you've seen it in the and you've seen it in the polls just in the last week, how she seems to have pulled ahead. I'd be very surprised if Abigail Spanberger didn't win, but I think one of the interesting things to watch, both in Virginia and New Jersey, and even in New York City, is going to be to dissect the returns and see what's the polling like, how many people went from the Hispanic community, Hispanic voters, and from young voters, because those are the two voting groups where Donald Trump has lost the most support in the course of this year. So if they turn out in big numbers for the Democrats in New Jersey and in Virginia, particularly in New Jersey, where there's a big Hispanic population, but in Virginia as well. I think that will be a lot of comfort to Democrats going into the midterms next year, if they can get those groups, bring them back from their Trump vote in 24.
And on the other side, given everything that's been in the headlines over the next year, if Republicans hold their numbers with Hispanic voters, that will be deeply worrying for Democratic candidates and Democratic strategists moving forward, and will suggest that this is more of a generational shift. We'll get the first glimmers of that after tomorrow night. I want to ask you, though, Dave Drucker, though, there's some weird cross currents going on in Virginia right now. You've got a Republican gubernatorial candidate that Donald Trump has not come out and endorsed yet. So that obviously is not going to help her. You have a Democratic attorney general candidate who said the most heinous things in text messages and on the phone a couple of years ago. In my opinion only, he shouldn't even be in this race right now because of those disqualifying remarks. But he is. So there are those cross currents going on. And then speak, if you will, to the fact, something that John Lemire's been talking about for some time. We've had Donald Trump obviously very active overseas and very active online, but he didn't get out and campaign for the one big beautiful bill, or whatever they call it, the thing that gave monopolists and billionaires unprecedented tax cuts while slashing health care for working Americans. And he hasn't been out campaigning on the trail for any candidates this time. So I'm curious, how's that going to impact that Virginia race and maybe even the New Jersey race?
Yeah, really good questions. The president, even though his numbers at this point in the election cycle are better than they were at the same point in his first presidency, is still at least a little bit toxic, if not very toxic, anywhere you're going to have a majority of Democratic voters showing up to vote. So the whole ball game in many instances becomes independent voters, because what Republicans need is what happened to them in 2022, right? In 2022, President Obama's numbers were horrible. The national atmosphere was not good for Democrats. They still won independents by 2 points. That's why the midterm election in 2022 was not a disaster by any stretch, and they actually gained a Senate seat and increased their majority. And so I think what we're looking for in New Jersey and Virginia as harbingers is, where does that independent vote go? And Trump is a non-factor. In some ways, you have to give Trump a little bit of credit here in that, normally he wants to insert himself, and then he can say later, hey, I tried to help. You didn't want my help. This proves you should have taken my help. Chitterelli has taken him up on it, even though Trump hasn't been in New Jersey. He has embraced Trump. Winsome Sears has done things a lot differently. But Trump has stayed out of it because Republicans don't want him in there. He's not helpful. And what we're seeing, and people on the ground in New Jersey were saying this yesterday, particularly on the Democratic side, but it's just true of our politics, Joe. These aren't local races anymore, by and large, right? They're just not. And not because of the government shutdown or anything else. These are nationalized races where people put on their jerseys. And the way the campaigns have approached these races is we have to maximize and squeeze every last drop of turnout from our side as we can, and then hope independents just find the opposition something they can't support.
Yeah, it's interesting. My argument had been several weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, that Democrats should ignore Donald Trump and start talking about affordability and start talking about these other issues. The fact that Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger are tying their candidate to their opponents to Donald Trump means they're seeing that voters don't feel the way I'm thinking.
Democrats seem pretty amped up and Republicans seem nervous. Obama's back on the campaign trail and Trump is hiding away. And all this really showcases that the GOP expects big losses. They expect big losses tomorrow in the election. The early data bears that out. The polling, the advanced polls, where the votes are coming in. Like, you can't be sure who voted for who. It's a secret ballot, of course. But if registered Democrats are voting more often than registered Republicans, or, parts of, say New Jersey, there are parts of that state that are more Democratic leaning. And if those states have higher early voting turnout, then it's a good sign for Democrats and a bad sign for Republicans. Like things like that. And those data points are leaning against Republicans. And so Trump is hiding away and panicking, vanishing, because he knows the truth. The voters don't want him. I said it earlier. You guys love this line. A lot of you said that they're returning Trump to the store. They want a refund. The American people want a refund. And the next best thing you're going to get, because he is president, unfortunately, is you punish MAGA Republicans, other Republicans, even Democrats like Cuomo who've been endorsed by Trump, and you actually bring in people that want to bring an alternative to the Republicans, because people are rejecting the mandate of the supposed mandate Trump has. Trump bragged about this historic mandate. He acted like he won a Reagan or a Lyndon Johnson or a FDR style majority when he didn't. Didn't even win half the popular vote. He won more votes than Kamala, but less than half. Less popular vote share than Hillary had. And also, he won a mandate on two very narrow things, really. Lower, like cheaper groceries and like better taxpayer outcomes for the regular folks. And he failed to deliver on both. He's going to make healthcare more expensive. He's going to make groceries more expensive. He's already been doing that. And unlike with Biden, when you could say inflation was up, but it was a global phenomenon, Trump specifically created a new global phenomenon of tariff war. And so you can often not blame a president for every bad economic thing, because even the U.S. president is not a god. He's a man, right? But now it actually is Trump's fault. Voters are making it clear. And again, if Obama's out there and Trump's hiding, oh boy, it's going to be a bad one.